Hey everyone, welcome to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. My name is Lou Lombardi, and I have a great interview for you guys today with a band called Makar, and we're going to find out what they've got going on and everything. They're calling in from New York City, and the day this is being recorded, we just had a big snowstorm, so everybody around here in the Northeast is either digging out or huddled down or something until they can get out. So it's been kind of an interesting a week here in the Northeast. You are listening to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. Catch up with us on the internet at LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com, where you can hear more great interviews with bands like Makar and different acts like that. And you can also listen to our Music Cast, which comes out every Saturday, where we feature great rock and roll that you're not going to hear anyplace else. I'd like to thank our sponsors, MTS Management Group. You can go to mtsmanagementgroup.com. They are more than just an artist management company. They're a bona fide rock star in the music industry, specializing in full-service artist management, publicity promotions, and social media campaigns. Also like to thank Positively Pittsburgh Live Magazine. That is pplmag.com, Pittsburgh's first internet radio, TV network, online community magazine, and business directory. Please visit pplmag.com. Okay, I have this very heroic band on the phone here. They're hunkered down in Queens, trying not to be overcome by the snow. Makar. Hey, guys. Andrea and Mark from Makar on the phone. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thank you for having us.
No problem. So tell me a little bit, guys, about how you guys got started as a band, because you're husband and wife, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how did the band get started?
Well, I never thought I wanted to go into music. I never really kind of thought of that, even though I played guitar as a kid. But Mark was always, he was always involved in music in some way. And we met at my first job. I answered an ad. We met before the internet, so I answered an ad in the New York Times for a position there, and that's how we met. We became great friends, and then we started dating. So, and then we got married. But when we got married, I didn't really see myself as doing music. That's what Mark really wanted to do. So.
Yeah, she was a writer. She writes poetry. She's a published poet and short story writer. She's working on her first novel, and I don't think she had played guitar since you hadn't played guitar since you were 12.
Since the 7th grade, yeah.
And I was writing a song. Yeah, I was writing a song called "The Monkey," and she came over and just started singing on the chorus, which was actually an instrumental part, and she just came up with this chorus.
That somebody could sing.
I had no idea.
You didn't say, "Hey, shut up! This is supposed to be instrumental."
He did say that.
Yeah, I did. It sounded so good. I was like, "What the hell?"
Well, because I was like, I hear this, I hear this part, and I was like, Mark, but I like the instrumental, I
had no idea I was marrying my songwriting partner.
Cool. Well, it's great that that the stars aligned in that way. Andrea, so you write lyrics, I assume, as well as poetry, correct?
Yeah, I mean we both write lyrics. Yeah, I mean it's kind of. It's funny because poetry, I think basically, I know this is just in my humble opinion, I think everyone writes poetry. Everyone starts out writing poetry because I think it's a very natural thing to write. People don't go on, keep writing it. And that's why I think lyrics are kind of like this natural kind of more natural transition into that.
Well, how do you know when something is going to be a poem versus lyrics for a song? How does that work?
God, I don't know. I mean, I wish I did know. I mean, some of the songs, like Mark took, before I started, getting involved in the band, he would take some of my poems and he would translate them into lyrics, because some of my poems are like, what's a chorus, what's a verse, I mean, I didn't think about it like that,
Right.
So he would, and then, I mean, some poems are very odd and they're not, but they're not. You got to make them into lyrics. They're different.
They're not rhythmical. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not, or they're different entities. It's
right.
It's like even with
lyrics and poetry are just two separate things. Totally.
But they do inform each other.
Yeah.
But it's like Mark, has taken parts of my poems and then made them more lyrical.
Yeah.
Or I've cannibalized some poems and put them together into a whole another song. and they somewhat translate, but they don't totally translate. It's hard, and sometimes it's hard to tell too. Like, you work on any writing or anything creative you do, like, is this any good? I don't know if it's any good, and you're like, and how does it become more successful? It's like, are you using too many words? Are you being too vague? Do you have an image? Do you have a story? These things go into anything creative, like in painting, or I don't paint, but like in anything like that. So you have to, I think it's like such a rambling answer, but you have to do it right for every song, what's right for every lyric. And to find that is always a journey.
Yeah.
Makes sense? I don't know. I'm rambling.
Well, how would you guys describe your sound as a band?
We kind of have this thing where we say it's poet, pop, art rock.
Punk.
Crossed with punk and blues. But basically we were on the Deli Magazine's list, and they just called us indie pop, indie guitar pop.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really like an indie rock band, I think. We have very melodic songs, and they get played on the radio a lot, so I think that's why they're saying we're indie pop, because we're very melodic and catchy, but...
people call us anti-folk too.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what that means. I have a folky.
That was one of my questions. What is anti-folk? So you guys obviously don't know the answer either.
Well, what the hell is emo, right?
Yeah.
I don't, emo, I think we're definitely kind of not emo, because it's like you write...
Well, people have compared us to everyone from Guns N' Roses to like...
Portishead.
So we get the weirdest, connections. But I think, can we try to like define anti-folk? What is that?
I think anti-folk comes, when I think about the bands that do anti-folk, they come from more of a punk aesthetic, because I guess folk is supposed to be pretty, but it's supposed to be of the people, which punk is of the people. So I don't know why they put anti, but I think there's this impression of folk music, and I love Peter, Paul, Mary. I grew up listening to that stuff with my parents.
It's just as hard hitting lyrically and politically as any punk song. So we really love the connection of folk and punk.
Yeah.
Just what they're saying, their feelings, that anyone can do it. You don't have to be a virtuoso. You just have to have something to say and express yourself, and that's what we love about
it. Like, we're not Mumford and Sons. We're not this. I like Americana music, but we're not trying on these outfits.
Genre.
Here's like a folk 60s thing. I'm gonna try it out. Put the headband on. We're not.
We're not a genre. We're not a genre band.
So I think anti-folk is one of those things that encapsulates a lot of things.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people describe bands as emo, and I'm like, I have no idea what that means. And I've had bands I've hated who are emo. I've had bands I love that are emo. So it's like this whole, people like to try to define people. I don't know. What do you think anti-folk is?
I have no clue. I saw that when I was reading your publicist or somebody sent me over some stuff, and that word showed up, and I was like, oh, anti-folk. Okay, let's. This is the husband and wife duo have been staples of the anti-folk music scene in New York City for several years. So you're part of the scene, even though you don't know what it is.
You think of the Moldy Peaches. I guess they're considered anti-folk. Would you think? What do you think of the Violent Femmes? They're considered Americana.
Yeah. Okay.
Or amazing.
I got you.
Oh, I don't know. I know it's.
What do you when you listen to us? What do you hear?
Can you help us out?
Can I help me out? I'm not gonna try to define your sound. Let's do it this way. Let's turn it around this way. What do you guys consider, in terms of music, your influences? Obviously because you Andrew, you hadn't played for a while, so you started playing with Mark again. But Mark, you were obviously had been a musician for a while, so obviously you had music that you liked and felt resonated with you. So you guys talk a little bit about maybe your influences?
Yeah, my influences started with The Who, Who's Next. That was my favorite album. For a long time, I was obsessed with that album. And, of course, the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors. I was very classic rock. But I also loved, 80s music, like Depeche Mode. I love folk songs. I kind of liked everything.
Right.
So my influences are pretty broad. But generally, for us, it's Bowie, the Beatles, and then like Joy Division and some folk singers and Woody Guthrie. I mean, that's kind of where we come from. Andrea's a total Beatles fanatic.
Well, this is why I kind of stopped playing guitar. It's like there weren't very many teachers in northern New Jersey where I grew up, right? And kids at that point. And this one guy was, he's a classical guitar teacher, and he really was frustrated with a 9-year-old who just wanted to play a Yellow Submarine. I mean, that's so I lost interest. And then when my parents found, another, a great teacher for me, and then for me specifically, and then for my brother, like my brother liked bluegrass, and they found this great teacher, and and then they found this guy Walter, who was great, who was totally into showing me how to play anything I wanted. He was a Beatles fan. It was too late. I kind of had lost interest, at 12 years old. No one also told you could. I mean, I know people don't like to tell people this. You can write your own song, because they're like, no, you need to learn everything first. But as a kid, you have to be inspired.
Yeah.
I mean, creativity is where it all comes from. So, but I'm a huge Beatles fan. That's all I listened to as a kid. I was the weird kid who just didn't listen to anything but the Beatles. I mean, we drove my grandmother crazy. My brothers and I watched the Yellow Submarine. We taped it and we watched it like 20 times in 1 week.
And now any band or song that you like has to resemble them.
Well, it's like, I'm like, oh, I love that Radiohead song. And Mark's like, that sounds like the Beatles. Because there's a Beatle-esque quality to it. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
But Andrea got me to kind of come up to date with a lot of the new bands, like Arcade Fire and the Brian Jones Massacre, and just like to appreciate what's happening today, because there's so many great bands out there. And sometimes you get stuck in this mold, like, only the best bands were in the 60s.
Sharon Van Eaton's amazing.
But there's so much going on now, and music has just opened up. It's amazing today.
Well, I think that the artists that you guys say that you like, in my opinion, I hear those flavors in what you guys do. So, I mean, I think that, the apple, as they say, doesn't fall far from the tree. So it just seems to me like, you guys have, like, created some sort of amalgam of those sounds, and you definitely have your own sound. I mean, there's no, anybody who's writing songs and trying to do anything original, even if they're trying to sound like somebody else, they usually often end up creating your own sound anyways, right? Because it's you.
Oh.
You can't, even if you wanted to sound like the Beatles, Andrea, you're you. So you're going to bring you to the Beatles. Does that make sense?
You can't duplicate it, and I mean, you're obviously going to bring your own personality.
I mean, I our attempt at writing a real punk song was I Hate My Job, because I was listening to a lot of Green Day, and I was like, this is our punk song, and it's always like this weird interpretation of it. Like,
and What Can I Tell You?
Oh, and What Can I Tell You too is like pretty Damien Day and stuff like that. But yeah, it always comes out a different way. Like on our new album that we're working on, there's this song called I'm Glad, and it definitely has a Who kind of quality to it. But of course I wrote down, I shouldn't tell you this, but I wrote down, instead of ska guitar, I said, I'm going to play skank guitar. That's how I called that one.
Well, that was a mistake.
That was a mistake, but I mean, I don't know. But
well, let's talk about your records, okay? Because what do you guys have 2 CDs now, or how many do you have?
We have 2. We have our first album was 18 songs.
Okay.
So that was like 9 Dreams. So I was like, double album. Yeah. He's like, hey, you want a double album? You don't know who the hell we are. But then the second album was Funeral Genius, and that was like a normal 12 songs. And now we're working on our third album, Fancy Hercules.
Okay, well, tell me. Well, so first of all, you're working on the new record, Fancy Hercules. Now, how does Fancy Hercules differ from Funeral Genius? And where do you guys record? And how do you produce? Do you produce it yourselves? You work with a producer? How does it go?
Well, I wish we could work with producers, but we're very indie.
Okay.
Interesting. Mark's
yeah, we produce everything, we mix everything, we record everything. The only thing we do is we go into a studio for one day, and we get the drums and bass down. Then we bring it. We have a Digi 001.
Oh.
Yeah.
We also have probably the last remaining Gateway computer.
Yeah, we bought it from Guitar Center in 2002. And it was like a combo package, Digi 001 and the Gateway. But he's still using this thing. It still works.
It's never been connected to the internet.
That's why it still works.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But,
so you guys record on your own, and you're just sort of like self-produced at this point. Now, you said the drums and bass. Now, who plays the? Because it's just the two of you, isn't it? You guys are the core of the band, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the first album we played with a guy named Jorge Arias on drums, and Dan Coates played on bass, and our friend Vince played a second guitar.
And he also wrote 3 great songs.
And he wrote 3 songs. And then on the last album, it was our drummer was Dawn McGrath, and she's kind of like a New York legend. She's been playing in New York for years.
Yeah.
And our bass player was this guy, Mark Nilges, who moved to New Orleans. So at this point, like, everyone's kind of moved out of New York, and we're kind of left. So on this album, we were thinking of getting drums and bass, but we're kind of just going to try it acoustically at this point.
We're gonna attempt it acoustically first, because the thing is we have, like, our old drummer, Dawn, moved away, but she said, I'd like to, if you guys want me to play, I'd play on the new album. But she still has to, she's great. She still has to get up to speed. Yeah. And then we have a friend who's a bass player who we could kind of do it long distance.
Yeah.
It might be weird, though, to do that. Yeah. We kind of want a real live sound, but we'll see how it goes acoustically.
Yeah, if we like the acoustic version, we'll stick with it. If not, we'll throw some drums and bass on it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been playing acoustically. I mean, the thing is with being in a super kind of indie band is that you have to, like, rely, like, I rely on Mark and he relies on me, and everybody else, they matter, but they're transient. They, like, come and go. And so it's like now we've been playing these gigs acoustically. We're like, well, maybe somebody's trying to tell us something. We should really do this acoustically, because we'll certainly get it done quicker if we do it acoustically. But will it have the radio traction? Are we going to really, or is it going to be right for all the songs? That's the ultimate question is it right for the songs acoustically? And we have to kind of hear that.
Well, but you guys usually perform as a duo, don't you? Live?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now we do, yeah.
We do now, like the last couple of years.
Okay.
Before that, we played out as a full band. So we're a lot more comfortable now acoustically, but we always feel like we're kind of moonlighting from our band. Like, we're not comfortable with it, but I think at this point we're pretty comfortable.
We're getting more comfortable with it.
But it was scary for a while, just because, with the drums and the bass, you have this big sound. And when we play live, some of these songs, they really come alive in a way that you don't even really hear on the album. And so it's like a test. We're gonna see how it goes.
But the thing is we've only played these songs for this album acoustically. So I think it could work out. It's just the thing is when you play live, as you know, like sometimes things get lost, like vocals get lost because you have sound. You have to tweak the sound and everything, and live, and sometimes the sound guy is not really doing it for you.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
They don't. They don't have time to get everybody right.
I have a low voice, so if they don't mic me right, I can get lost in the drums or whatever. But mainly we have really good sound.
Yeah, we do have really good sound, but it's easier when it's just guitar, piano, and 2 vocals.
Plus, if we tour, we don't have to schedule anyone. We can just go.
Yeah, and we can. The thing is too is a lot of people, when it's your project, you have to pay them. And that's also it's which is totally understandable, but it also eats into how much you can do. And now it's like, well, we can do this. We can just, go, we have day jobs and stuff, but, we can go and do a radio show. We don't have to pay for people to go. We don't have to pay for a hotel. Yeah. It can be, a vacation. I mean, our friend said, who is in this great band called Hello Nurse, he said, well, you guys, even if no one comes to a show of yours, it's still like you're on a date, because you guys are with each other. I'm staring there. And
that's kind of cool. Oh, wow. I never thought about it that way. It's a good idea.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Well,
that's romantic.
Here's my question, though, about that. And just to kind of because this is an interesting conversation, because a lot of artists are doing this because, well, I mean, like you said, you got to pay people. And, so, you see these acts that, like, when they're playing in their hometown, it's like, 7-piece band and, confetti cannons and, the whole thing. And then you go see them in Duluth and they're up there just with an acoustic guitar and a harmonica or something. I mean, do you feel that like maybe audiences are going to feel a little gypped if you sort of like do this whole electric thing and then you show up acoustic?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of another incentive to do this acoustically, because now that we're playing acoustically, then they're gonna get what they hear on the album. But I don't think so. And people have reacted really positively to us playing acoustically. Okay. And I think you can really. I mean, we saw the guy from what was that band you like? We saw him at the City Winery.
Oh, Everclear.
Everclear. It's just him on a guitar at the City Winery.
But his songs are so translatable to acoustic.
And it really translated acoustically. I mean, I didn't think it would because he had a lot of production on his songs, but it's not always a letdown. People can really rock the room.
But people told us before, we did a few acoustic gigs before, and friends of ours like, oh my God, I could totally hear the lyrics, I could totally hear your vocals. I really like it better
Some people like it better, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the problem is it's like, it's kind of like what's feasible. Like, what can we, because if we actually really thought about just recently, we were at my parents' house last weekend in New Jersey, and we were practicing there, and we had recorded our first album there. They have a third floor study, so we were thinking like, well, Mark is like, it's going to take this amount of time for Dawn to get up to speed, and for like then Joe to add on to it, and then we have to play to a click track, and all these kind of like mechanism,
Yeah, the amount of time, like what'll happen is we'll get a band at the speed, and then after a year or two, then they'll have to go somewhere, or something will change in their lives. And then you've lost all this momentum, and that kept happening to us a lot. Because we had other band members that played with us that didn't play on the album, and so we've kind of come to the decision of just like, let's just do it ourselves. There's no issues, there's no problems. I mean, if there's an issue between us, then it's bigger than the music,
Yeah, I mean. That's a real problem.
Like you're sleeping on the couch tonight, that's the other car.
I hear inspiration for a new song there, maybe. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's a lot of people are doing the acoustic thing, and I wonder. A lot of people are talking about recording acoustically, and I wonder if it's just. I don't know. I'm not sure what the momentum is for that, except for something like.
But even Kurt Cobain was like, I can't wait to just be like a folk singer, just playing on my guitar and people taking me seriously, So there's an aspect, I think, of seriousness that comes with playing on, just your acoustic guitar. But
we're not.
Yeah, but I mean, there are so many people out there doing it right now. I mean, if you look at Jack Johnson, it certainly hasn't hurt his career.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's cool. The other idea for this album was like to get everybody that we know, like friends and stuff, just to like record parts on it, because we wanted to have like an indie orchestra. I mean, but it's also like, what can you, I mean, there's reasonable studios and stuff, but what can you pay for and stuff? I mean, one thing that we have to kind of bring up with my parents is like, we want to go and try and lay down some of the tracks one weekend. Like, hey, Mom and Dad, can we just put our amps here for like one whole weekend again and see how it happens?
Yeah, because we were out there for like a year and a half on the first album, and they were like, well, when are you guys leaving? We're like, well, pretty soon.
18 months later. We did go into the thing is we did go into a studio for all the other two albums we did to lay down bass and drums, but to do overdubs. Yeah. It's better to do that yourself, like especially with vocals. You don't want to drive an engineer crazy just because you're not happy with like the millionth take. I mean, we don't, we can drive ourselves crazy. We don't want to drive a poor engineer crazy.
Well, yeah, and I mean vocals. I mean that's the thing. I mean, I have a friend of mine who has a surf band. And they're like, well, we recorded our whole album in 2 days. I'm like, well, you don't have vocals, dummy. You got to do vocals now. There's a whole other world of like problems.
Exactly. I appreciate you saying that. Exactly. And we were even thinking on this album of going into a studio, getting a live sound and making this actually like a live recording and just living with it. But we've never done that before, and I know we're not going to be happy with it. So no, because, your voice, people always think like, there's something wrong with your character if you don't sing it right. It's like, no, my voice is an organic instrument, and sometimes it doesn't work,
Yeah.
I mean, it just...
Or it's tired,
it's
or
tired.
you're stuffed up.
Or you're thinking, like, when our first album, one of the things that we were thinking is, like, oh, my God, we're spending money, and that affects your vocals, you know?
Yeah, the first album, we went into a studio for a while, and we learned a lot. And now that we know it, there's no point to spend the money. But everything that we've done so far has been, like, simplifying. Like, our first show, we brought amps, we brought a PA, we brought, like, everything. We set this whole thing up. And from that gig, we were like, we're never doing this again. We're stripping down. We're only playing places with like a back line. And as you gain experience, you get to this point where you're just like, a kind of Zen master. You're like, I'm just bringing, and it's easier, it's more streamlined, and that's kind of where we are now, I think.
And you also have to, I mean, as an indie band, you have to think about, okay, well, these are the costs. And if I'm spending this much money, it's going to start to affect my performance because I'm going to start to think I spent this much money and not a lot of people came out, or a lot of people. It's like because you're gonna instead of just being on stage and being connected to what you're doing, you're going to start to think about all these these extraneous things, of reality because on stage is you have to divorce yourself from reality. I mean, most people are terrified performing. So it's like you have to kind of get into that mindset of like, I'm here, but I'm also not here.
So what is the – tell me about the band name. Where did you get the band name? It's an unusual name.
Mark's looking at me. Okay, so Mark, we were trying to come up with a band name, and I was just reading the dictionary because that's how cool I am. And And I was reading through it as giving out names, and one of the names was Makar, which means poet in Scottish, and also it's like poet of the
15th century.
Yeah, the dark ages, right? And Mark's like, that sounds good, but I think Mark said he liked it because it had all the letters of his name, But that's
it's not an anagram of my name, but and we're not Scottish, but we really liked it. We liked the meaning of it. Andrea's a poet. It kind of made sense. And the Makars, interestingly enough, are people who preserved writing and literature in the Dark Ages. So we kind of love that little angle of it too.
Yeah, I mean we were lucky, and then one thing that we did is there used to be this site called Star Polish, and one of the things they said, trademark your name, because somebody's going to try and take it.
Yeah.
You're going to do all this work, and then someone's going to try, and that's one of the first things that we started to do. And it's a weird thing to think of, because people are like, well, you're an indie band, why are you trademarking your name? And it takes a long time.
But there are other Makars.
There are other Makars out there in international. But at least we have it in the U.S.
There's a guy in Russia that's a DJ, but we're not going to mention his name.
No.
but I mean, you have to be careful because you could do all this work and lose it. I mean, when Henry Rollins put his album out, U2, and he had that big U2, and there was this big battle between him and U2. It made sense because when you looked at his album, you thought it was from U2. I mean,
it was a good marketing ploy.
Yeah, but you have to be really careful.
Well, before we wrap up here, I would like Andrea to tell us, if she could, about her novel.
Oh my God! Okay. How much time do you have? No, it's a novel I've been working on for a long time. Basically, it starts off where this woman jumps or is pushed in front of a subway train, and you're kind of trying to find out how she gets. It's more important to think about how did she get to this point, because psychologically she's gotten to a point where she's really on edge, and kind of like a psychological, not mystery, but psychological trying to figure it out.
Gotcha.
But the problem, I finished it, and then I sent to a bunch of indie publishers and a few major ones that will accept it, and I got some really great rejections, really nice rejections saying, I liked it, but you need developmental editing. You need to be more polished. And you understand, I went through this thing a ton of times. Mark read it. Other people read it, my writing group. And I was at the point where I didn't know what else to do. So then I actually got an editing service, and they said, okay, you got to change the whole chronology. So now this last year I've been working on it. Because what's one more year? Because I've been working on this for so long to try and whittle it down from, it used to be 1,200 pages, but when I submitted it it was 600, so that was better.
Okay.
Right? But now it's like 530 or something like that. But it's a literary novel. It's why did this protagonist, Jules, why did she want to jump in front of a subway train?
Or was she pushed?
But that's like, she was in the, how did she get to this point? What happened in her life? It's literary novels kind of a plot, but they kind of don't, which kind of might be the problem. I'm also I started writing another novel about a serial killer who kills hipsters. So that's kind of more of a plot. But it's been a long journey because I'm a poet and I've had to learn how to write fiction, and it's very. I don't know. It's people don't talk about how hard it is to write a novel. At least it's really hard for me, structure-wise. Mark's actually working on a novel too, and he said, "Wow, this is a lot of work."
Well, I can't imagine. It sounds like a Herculean, fancy Herculean undertaking. So good luck with that, guy. That's right. So what is the next? So you're working on trying to figure out if Fancy Hercules is going to be acoustic. You're pretty sure it's going to be. What does the next 6-12 months look like for you guys? What's coming up?
You can answer that, Mark.
We have a DJ out in Quebec that wants to get us into a festival out there, so we're waiting to hear about that. We're mainly just going to be working on finishing this album and just basically, just trying to get this album done. I think that's going to be our main
We would
focus.
like to do small tours. We'd love to come to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And do radio shows.
We play out locally a lot.
We'll play out locally a lot. But the thing is when you're preparing for a gig, then you're kind of just focused on the gig, and that helps do recording and stuff. But we really want to start recording Fancy Hercules in early February, and
that'll probably consume most of our time.
That'll consume a lot of our time, but we would, we're really trying to focus on. It's crazy, it's all this music business stuff. Trying to focus on trying to get into some, films and licensing. Melissa from Cityburg Publicity is really trying to make strides in that direction. I guess we're so micro-focused on Fancy Hercules that until we start recording that, then we can start to project. But we're trying to get into a bunch of different festivals.
Couch by Couch West.
There's always Couch by Couch West. Have you heard of Couch? Have you heard of Couch by Couch West?
No, I haven't. No, enlighten me. Couch by Couch West. Okay, what's this?
Well, Couch by Couch West is a super indie version of South by Southwest. It's just people playing in their home on their couch, not a live show. It is a live show, but it's recorded, and they basically put the videos up on their site. They choose which videos they want
during South by Southwest.
It's you can't get to South by Southwest. Well, you can hang out on the couch on Couch by Couch West. But it's really awesome. These guys, the N-Men, they played in the beer brewery in Brooklyn because the guy works there. It was awesome.
But generally, it's from your couch.
It's from your couch. Sometimes people your kitchen. So we're definitely gonna do that. We'd love to do tours. We're definitely gonna go to Quebec
once we're done with the album.
But we might go to Quebec in between that anyway. We'd love to do tours, but it just depends on. We take time off and do stuff like that. Up and down the East Coast, we'd love to do that too. We're planning on doing more of that stuff and going back to Canada and visiting friends in California, playing a show.
Anything else you guys want to add or clarify or anything before we wrap up?
No, thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lou. It's been great.
Well, I'll tell you what, can you hang on the phone for a minute? I'm going to thank my sponsors one more time, and we're going to wrap up, but I'm going to come back. I want to do a bonus question with you guys. You guys seem like you're a lot of fun, and I think we'll have a good time with this. So, you up for that?
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Okay. Guys, you've been listening to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus, my interview with the band Makar, and you can find them on the internet at makarmusic.com. That is MAKAR music.com. And they have a couple of records out. They're working on a new one. Very interesting stuff, great sound, great songs, and you'll definitely enjoy it. I'd like to thank one more time our sponsors, MTS Management Group, that is mtsmanagementgroup.com, and I'd like to thank Positively Pittsburgh Live, that's pplmag.com. You guys are listening to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. If you like this interview, there's plenty more on the website, LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com. We publish a new interview every Wednesday, and we put out a new music podcast every Saturday where you can hear great bands like Makar and some of these different people that we're talking to. Once again, that is LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com. And don't forget, one more time, let's to patronize Makar, what they've got going on. Go to Makar Music, that is MAKAR music.com. Guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.